I'm coaching with a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, some of them 60s, and the problem comes, up unfortunately very frequently, which is what they called failed launch. This idea that their 20-year-old, maybe sometimes even 30-year-old, goes back home and says, "I've tried. I'm trying to lead my life. I'm trying to be an independent person, and I'm failing. I cannot hold myself." And then they, in a way, fall back, go all the way back to maybe their childhood room or the basement, or just become financially dependent. And you think about how emotional that is to the parent. First, you feel a failure as a parent, right? I didn't do my job, and I'm to blame. And then there's the seeing your kid, someone you love, suffer and struggle, and that's just killing you from the inside. And then on top of that, it adds more pressure because usually they're, financially dependent on you, and you want your freedom. You're in your 50s, you want your freedom, you want to have time for yourself. You've spent 20 years, 20 more than 20 years raising a family, and now it's your time, and and even that is not possible because they're back home and they're very dependent, and you have to take care of them. So there's a lot of stress going on. It's a high stakes problem. And usually, with those kind of problems, if you understand the nature of the problem, you see that those are complicated problems. They're not easy to fix, but they are fixable. So, the first thing I would do is understand what is that problem? What is the nature of that problem? Let's start with where it starts. It starts with the culture. It starts with a culture that is going against those skill sets and those muscles that I call them, like the inner muscles of carrying yourself, and they in a way are attacking them and destroying them. It starts with the culture who tells you that you should be extrospecting all the time. There's a lot of noise. You're being bombarded with thousands of messages, and it's all about the phone. It's all about what other people think. It's all about the noise outside. It's all about the YouTube. It's all about the TikTok. It's all about what other people are doing and how they're dancing and moving and doing stupid things. It's all about what's going on. It's all about the noise outside. Um, then there are the parents who are overprotecting, who are trying to not allow the kid to spend a moment on their own, get to understand themselves, get to solve their problems on their own, get to reflect, get to be in a moment of quiet, trying to solve all their problems, not letting them develop the engineering muscles of managing your own machine, right? And of defining how do I get around issues, obstacles, constraints, problems. So we're helicopter parents, where you are shielding them from the opportunities to learn about themselves. And I think worst of all, and those are the guys that I blame most, are the schools and the teachers. Just look at a school and a classroom and see how it's designed to basically tell you you are nothing, you don't matter, you're like everybody else. And so shut up, sit down, listen to an adult speaking for 8 hours a day and regurgitate what they've said to you in a test and be an A student and then go to college and do the same, only to find out that you have no skill sets of understanding who you are, what you will love, what you want, and how to live. So take all that together and you get a real problem. And there's no surprise, only few survive this calamity of education. So that the nature of the problem is that the healthy kid is not evolving in understanding who am I, what do I want, not having the time to develop introspective skills of understanding my meaning in life. What do I find attractive? So we can talk about kind of the steps usually when I work with young people, what I take them through, but that's the nature of the problem. It's a deep problem, and the fixing needs to be inside of that young adult who needs to learn how to rediscover themselves and hone the skills to manage themselves, regulate their emotions, understanding who they are, understanding what they love, and so on. The start is hard because sometimes they've lost the will to want or to see even value and meaning in life. And that's the part where, in some cases, it's easy because you have to just break a shallow shell, and the value breaks through, and sometimes they're really in states of deeper depression, even of completely losing their ability to see value in life. So the first step I would call is getting back for them to know themselves. It's a very introspective stage, where I ask questions in the beginning. They don't even know what I'm asking, which is, who are you? Who are you? And they're like, what do you mean who I am? Here I am. This is who I am. It's like, yeah, I know how you look. I know how you talk. But who are you? And then they slowly understand that what I'm asking basically is, who are you as a valuer? What are the things that you see in life that you find meaningful, that you find attractive? What do you find sexy? What do you find, so curious that you want to learn about? Things that, and in many cases, you have to take them back to their childhood, to events in their lives where they saw meaning. And sometimes when I can't find any meaning, I go to lack of meaning. I go to the opposite world, the upside down world. It's like, tell me what you hate, tell me what you despise, which actually reflects a light on what it is that you love. So there are many techniques to go around this, like, I don't care about anything, I don't love anything, I just want to sit home and do nothing kind of attitude. If you poke enough, they want to tell you who they are. They want to show you what they love because it's important. So you go back to cases like, just show me, tell me about an occasion where you did emote, you did find that important. So that is the first step of knowing who you are. And then from there on, we move on to, once we see the power of values, the power of those things that we find meaningful, right? This is where we move on to the stage of, what do you love? And then we create what I call the value galaxy of all the things that you find meaningful in life. And suddenly, from nothing, a blank page, they end up with an array of things that could be the vehicles in their lives towards meaning. And then we use those vehicles in order to help them understand that there's a reason to live. There's a reason for them to go on journeys and want things. We start envisioning, we start imagining what it will look like to have that thing. And more importantly, what will I look like if I was the kind of person who said, I want that, and then went out and did that. And that's building the kind of first, cycles of motivation to get that young, adult from a state of, I don't want anything, I don't know who I am, I don't know why I wake up in the morning, to like, wait a second. There are things that I really find interesting. And can I really go out and get them and be the kind of person that defines them and knows what he wants and then goes out and gets them? Sure. Sometimes it's hard because sometimes there's a lot of inner resistance. There's almost like a subconscious habit to avoid meaning because it's dangerous. Sometimes people just evade introspection because, shutting your senses down and saying, okay, now I'm directing my focus to the inside. It's a mess. And they're like, no, I'm not touching this. So like, oh, okay. I'm going to go back and do something to distract myself from my inner workings. So I would say sometimes it's very, very tough. But you're right. I mean, this is how you evoke the motivation, by saying, just take me back to a point where you got excited about something, or something felt important, or something felt attractive. You saw someone do something. I remember the first time, I'm a drummer, so first time I saw the Chick Corea Electric Band play on TV, and it blew my mind. I was just mesmerized by how someone can play the drums so well. And so those moments is where I take them back to. And I was like, it doesn't matter if it's like playing with dough. It doesn't matter if it's doing something that seems completely unimportant. They are very, very important. And here is a tip for parents. Leave your kids alone to experience those moments, to discover what they love and to see themselves getting interested. If you come in and say, how interesting that is, right? You destroyed the moment, right? I have a friend who is a Montessori teacher, and she tells a story about her watching a kid seeing a leaf, coming down from a tree, and just understanding that the leaf is just fell from the tree, and contemplating for a second. He says, the best moment for me as a teacher is resisting my desire to go to that 3-year-old and say, how amazing is that? No, leave them alone, because they need to experience that for themselves. So those are the moments you bring them back to, because those are the vehicles that they can start building something from. Once we have a map of all the things in life, the places, the people, the activities, the hobbies, the environments, the possessions that you love, then we can start building a map of who you are. And then the next step, I call it from a valuer to a wanter. Someone that looks at the value map and say, but some of this, not all of this, some of those things I want for myself, right? I want to become that, right? I want to learn more about this thing. And this is where there's a lot of resistance because they feel like I'm not allowed to. I hear a lot like, oh, you're talking about a fantasy land. You're talking about you live in this bubble of oh, you can afford maybe. I was like, no, this is how happiness looks like. You choose what is wonderful and what, the things you want to go after, and you build a life around it. Think about all the people that you admire. That's what they've done. They've never lost this childish excitement and wonder about things, and they've built a life around it. That's what you want to do. So that is the phase where we imagine a lot. We build kind of an imagination of what can I be? What will it look like? And when you're imagining this and writing about it, it brings it down from the clouds down to earth. It's like, I can actually be that. It's not that fantastic, right? I can know people, I can reach out to people, I can develop a network, I can ask, I can get closer to people who know how to do things that I want to learn how to do. And that evokes not just the goal, the what, but the how, which is I want to be able to get that thing. And so moving from a lover, right, or someone who loves, knows what they love, to a wanter. And then the next step is going out and doing it. And there's a lot of resistance in that step as well. It's like, I'm not the kind of person who gets things done. I'm not the kind of person who can wake up in the morning and commit to, doing something every day and developing habits. There's a lot of resistance there because of the lack of self-esteem, the lack of self-confidence. And you start small. It's like going to the gym. You don't lift the heavy weights first. You take small weights and just say, okay, let's start by waking up every day at 7. That means you have to plan the day before. You have to go to sleep at a certain time. You have to, you wake up and let's agree on what you're going to do. Small things, easy things. And then, over time it's like, yeah, I can do it. What else can I do? What else can I do? And you kind of rebuild. Unfortunately, it's almost like re-educating a child. Show them that they can do the things that they set out to do. And it takes much faster with adults because they know they have a lot of, not a lot, but life experience. So that's the period where we show ourselves that we're able to set goals and achieve them. And then the big part is what happens when the first obstacle hit, when the first failure happens. And that's where we carve out time to talk about emotions and what is the proper role of the emotions? What are they? How do we deal with them? Do we take them as a primary, as tools of cognition and thinking, or do we learn how to identify them, name them, understand their root causes, where they come from, what we call the value judgments behind them that evoke the emotions? What do I do when I see an emotion that is not inappropriate to what's going on? And that's the opportunity to redesign and rewire those emotions. And that is hard. I mean, talk about a process where you have to talk to yourself and say, the fact that I feel depressed about things or fearful is not the right emotional response. I should be excited, right? I'm too risk averse. So how do I go back and challenge my premises to see, is that the right emotional response? And if the answer is no, teaching them how to self-talk, self-program, challenge the premises, talk to what I call talk to your 4-year-old very gently, but in a way reprogram and rewire your emotional states. And that's something that takes time. That and plus the next step, which is just learning how to get things done, how to there's so much knowledge out there or how to get things done, how to plan, how to get things organized. So that's something where I'm not an expert. Maybe I'm an expert as my own kind of person who knows how to get things done. But there's so many books out there that will teach you how to plan, how to get things done. But the most important thing is to ask yourself, how is it going? Am I doing well? Am I enjoying this, or this is becoming a burden? And if so, why? and so on and so forth. And the last step that I work with people, it's almost like 7 stages and seven phases, is even when they do everything and they make a lot of progress, they don't know how to cash in. They don't know how to derive happiness and fulfillment and confidence from their achievements. So even that needs to be learned. It's like, hey, wait a second. This is wonderful. This is a reason to celebrate. You didn't even notice how much work you've done and how much achievement you've made. Pause for a second, look back. You've climbed the mountain, and it's time to reflect and cash in and verbalize to your subconscious. It's like, wait a second, I am now the person who did this and that and that and that. I deserve some self-confidence. What does self-confidence mean for me? How do I verbalize it for me to say, I'm now the person who knows how to do things? I deserve more credit from myself. So this self-reputation needs to be developed, and for some people, it's not automatic. Some people overshoot. I mean, some people give themselves too much credit. It's like, no, you're not that good yet. Where's the proof? So all of those, like, if I was to kind of summarize everything, is like, who are you? And developing the introspective skills of asking that question. Know thyself. What does it mean? And from there to understand that what it means is like, what do I love? What are my values? What do I see as wonderful in this life? Then the next step is like, what do I want from all the things that I find interesting and fascinating? What am I going to act on? And then how am I going to get it? And then when you start moving forward, how I'm going to overcome challenges, which means how do I manage my emotions? And then how do I execute? How do I achieve things? And then lastly, how do I become happy? How do I derive happiness? Am I happy? What more should I do? What less should I do? I mean, really understanding, because life it's almost like a never-ending spiral of value pursuits, and self-confident, self-actualized, self-expressed person is the person who knows all those things. They know who they are. They know what they love. They're uncompromising about what they love. They go and they build a life around those values, right? And then they go out and they get it, and they fall down on their faces and they bring themselves back up, and they go to the quarry and work there if needed, right? But eventually you achieve the soul, right? You build the soul. That this is, if you go back to the failed launch, this is what the parent is actually asking. How can I help my kid and support my kid in the process of developing a soul, a self-independence, of knowing who they are, knowing how to be who they want to be, and then enjoying it. And even in that last step is like enjoying art, finding the art that you love, knowing what love is, and relationships with people, and understanding sex. People have so many bad premises and ideas of how to enjoy. Well, what is a romantic partner? What am I looking for, right? How do I enjoy it? Developing hobbies, taking them seriously, engaging with other people, understanding the trader principle. There's so many things to learn of just how to derive self-confidence and self-esteem from what you're already doing. The hardest element about this whole process is the development of introspective skills. There's a great quote by Ayn Rand. I don't know if I'll take a minute to read it. She writes, if men identified introspectively their inner states 1/10 as accurately as they identify objective reality, we should be a race of ideal giants. I ascribe 95% or more of all psychological trouble and personal tragedies to the fact that in the realm of introspection, we are on a level where savages were, or lower, in regards to extrospection. Men are not taught to introspect. They are actively discouraged from engaging in introspection, and yet their lives depend on it. So what Ayn Rand is saying is, to be a fulfilled human being, you need to understand your inner workings. You need to understand what's going on. And imagine that you shut off all your senses for, 30 minutes, and you direct all your focus to the inside. So it's not passive meditation. The problem with all the meditation world is like, the alternative of extrospecting and dealing with the world is silence. Do nothing. Just observe and don't think. Just, be a blank board. And what Ayn Rand is talking about when she's talking about introspection is like, no, you direct your focus and thinking capacities to what's going on inside. So you're thinking, you're emoting, and then you're writing down, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What am I responding to? What are the premises that evoke that emotion? What's going on? Am I right about this? Is something foggy? You know how sometimes you walk for weeks like feeling something, and then just with a one moment of introspection, it's like, of course, now I understand what's going on. But you didn't take the time to really clarify what is driving all of those, I don't know, emotion, like gloomy feeling that you're in. People's like, oh, how I feel gloomy, but I don't know, it'll pass. Instead of just introspecting for a couple of minutes, like, why am I feeling gloomy? What has triggered it? Is it the right response to what happened? Is it rational or not? Should I rewire things? Should I do something about it? So yeah, introspection is the hardest skill because it's all over the process that I've mentioned, all the way from knowing who you are and what you love and how to deal with emotions and how to enjoy. All of it requires an ability to look inside and live what I call a deeper life. It's truly a deeper life. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They're very successful on the outside and everything. They're actually looking for noise all the time because of the horror of what they'll find if they stop for a minute and just look inside of what's going on here. Who am I? Do I know what I want? Unfortunately, people will go to great lengths to avoid introspection and not to stop for a second to clarify for themselves what's going on and seeing the problems and dealing with the problems as you know, as they arise from all the things that you have to work on internally. I went from being a person who lived kind of an average mundane life of, let's just do the kind of checkbox, all the things they told you to achieve, which is have the, the family, the home, the car, the prestige, the safe job. Until I kind of a watershed moment in my life where I realized that's not enough, and I went through this process of like, I need to change. I need to change my own psychology. How do you do that, right? So all those tools are results of a lot of trial and error of how do I make this repeatable. I remember moments where I had epiphanies of what's holding me back, right? Understanding your own traumas, understanding your own biases and premises, wrong premises, and then how do you identify them, and then how do you work through them? So a lot of people go to psychologists. Hopefully they're good. Unfortunately, a lot of psychologists are just don't even know what the goal is. They don't understand happiness. So being the kind of doer that I am, I develop a set of skills and a set of then tools for other people to do that on their own. And what's beautiful is that some people just need a nudge. They need the vocabulary, the thinking methods, and then yes, I get it. I just need to reclaim that. I need to go back to the moments where I did that well, and then reporting back on major achievements. And so that's the beauty of, I think, what good psychology looks like. Because if you ask me what it is that we're talking about psychology. We're talking about how to understand philosophy, which is the kind of blueprint of what it is that I want to build. What is happiness? How does a human being achieve happiness? That's it, the universal. But psychology is how do I, with my own psychology, with my own set of values, with my own nature of who I am, what I love, what I don't love, what I find exciting or boring, builds a life around me and my values and my happiness. If you want to check what's going on with your life, how to make it better, if you want to help a struggling young adult, a kid, a child, a nephew, a niece, or whatever that is, a grandkid, there's nothing more rewarding than reading emails from parents or from the people that I work with directly on how much progress they're making and how they're improving their lives. If you're interested, if you're curious, just write to me. And also just subscribe, watch those kind of videos. There's a lot to learn. I will be sharing more tools. I will be sharing a lot of my workbook. There's a whole workbook that you can download for free with all the exercises. You can do that on your own as well.